Captain Aaron Vale stood at the threshold of the floating palace, its silver spires drifting against a violet sky. He felt the cool marble floor under his boots, and the hush of the grand hall pressed gently on his senses. Outside, the war between Earth and Zarana had raged for 6 long years. Now, by treaty, the fighting had ended, but for Aaron, peace felt like a gilded cage. He adjusted the crisp lines of his uniform and took a steadying breath. A pair of tall Zaranian guards led him through an archway carved with stars and swirling waves. Their faces were serene, their eyes curious but unreadable. Aaron's heart pounded as he followed them into a chamber lit by soft lanterns floating on gentle currents of air. At the far end, a curved dais rose under the glow of a crystal chandelier. There Princess Arya Zirian awaited him, her dark hair falling like silk around her shoulders and her gaze locked on his dot. Aaron bowed, arms stiff at his sides. He offered the salute of his rank, a symbol of trust between former enemies. Arya rose from her seat with graceful poise. Her smile was warm but sad, as though she carried the weight of every lost life on her shoulders. When she spoke, her voice was quiet yet clear. "Welcome, Captain Vale. I am honored you have come." The words felt both gentle and firm, and Aaron felt a wave of wonder. He saw in her eyes not triumph but relief that the war was over. Yet as he looked around the chamber, he realized the treaty had bound him here. He and the princess were to be joined in marriage, a union to seal the fragile peace. The thought settled in his chest like a stone. Marriage to an alien princess was far from anything he had ever imagined. He swallowed hard, uncertain if his duty would bring him happiness or heartbreak. He nodded to her words of welcome, forcing calm into his expression. Inside, his mind raced with questions of freedom, honor, and hope. Arya reached out a slender hand and guided him to a low table, where a silver tray held 2 goblets of glowing blue wine. She poured with careful precision and offered him one. The sweet, tangy scent filled the air. As he raised the goblet, he saw tiny motes of light swirl within the liquid Zaranian magic, she later called it. He toasted her with a quiet 2-piece, and she echoed the words softly. Their glasses chimed, and for a moment the palace echoed with a fragile promise. Aaron took a sip, letting the cool liquid calm his nerves. He watched Arya closely. She wore a gown of pale lavender with threads that caught the light like starlight on water. She seemed both regal and vulnerable, a leader who had lost family to the war. He felt a tug of compassion. Perhaps this marriage was more than ceremony. Perhaps it could heal 2 worlds. Yet he could not ignore the dread of his own confinement. Here the lanterns floated higher, and shadows danced on the walls like memories. Arya led him toward a balcony overlooking a garden of floating blossoms that glowed softly in the night. He listened to the hush of water falling from crystal fountains below. In this quiet moment, he felt his anger soften. He realized he had arrived not as a conqueror, but as a bridge between worlds. He turned to Arya, his voice low so only she could hear. "Princess, I will do my duty," he said. Words trembled with promise and with fear. She placed her hand over his and nodded, her touch gentle as a whisper. Together they stood under the silent sky, 2 souls bound by peace, unaware of the journey their hearts would take. Captain Aaron Vale awoke to pale sunlight filtering through tall windows. The chamber felt vast and strange. He dressed quickly in his uniform, straightening his jacket as he recalled the mission that had brought him here. Peace envoys from Earth waited beyond the palace gates. They would bring news of home, of life beyond these walls. He felt a surge of hope and a longing he had not known since the war began. Aaron stepped into a long corridor lined with polished stone. His footsteps echoed as he made his way toward the grand hall. Servants passed quietly, their eyes polite but cautious. He drew a deep breath, imagining the embrace of his comrades. The smell of warm incense hung in the air, mingling with the faint scent of alien flowers. He quickened his pace, eager to see the delegation he had left behind. When he entered the hall, light from stained glass panels painted colored patterns on the marble floor. Princess Arya stood at the center, her gown flowing around her like mist. She smiled when she saw him, but there was no warmth in her eyes, only resolve. Across from her, 2 Xeranian ministers watched in silence. Aaron moved forward with a polite bow, his heart pounding. "Princess," he said, voice steady, "I must meet with the human envoy. They await my instructions and news of our progress." He stepped toward the grand doors, already half-turned. Freedom felt close enough to touch. He imagined the voices of his people, the laughter he had missed during long battles. His pulse raced with the promise of home. Arya's gaze held him. She raised a pale hand and stepped between him and the doors. Her touch was light on his arm, but it carried the weight of command. "Captain Vale," she said gently, "the rites of union are not complete. You cannot leave until we have fulfilled all parts of our treaty." Her words were soft, but they grounded him like stone. He paused, frustration flickering across his face. "Princess, the treaty calls for my presence here only until the formal ceremonies end. Those conclude today." He tried to give her a reassuring smile, but it trembled. "After that, I can return to Earth. My duty is clear." He searched her eyes, seeking understanding. Arya's expression softened. She drew a slow breath, as if choosing her words with care. "The rites must include the final blessing of the palace elders. They come at dusk. Until then, your place is here by my side." She spoke the last words with a hint of apology. "I know this feels like confinement, but it ensures our people's trust your commitment." Aaron felt anger strained his throat, but he held it back. He bowed his head in acknowledgement. "I understand, Princess," he said quietly. Out. Each word felt heavy, as though binding him more tightly to Zorana. Looked up and saw concern in her eyes, and something like regret. For a moment, he wondered if she too felt the cost of this peace. They stood together in the hall, 2 figures bound by fate. Outside, a soft breeze stirred curtains, carrying the distant hum of palace life. Aaron's heart ached with longing for freedom, but also with something new, a hint of care for the princess who had stopped him. He realized that peace was not just the absence of war, but the challenge of trust and understanding as the delegations. Footsteps approached the doors. Aaron squared his shoulders. Duty called him back to his people, but his promise to Arya held him here. He would wait until dusk, until the final rite passed, and learn what it meant to stand beside this alien princess, not as prisoner, but as partner in peace. That evening, the palace corridors lay quiet under soft lantern light. Captain Aaron Vale moved without guards, trusting the peace that now ruled these halls. He felt the cool marble beneath his boots as he walked toward the balcony, drawn by a gentle melody. It was unlike any song he had heard in his 6 years of war, slow, aching, and beautiful. Stepping onto the balcony, he saw Princess Arya Zirian seated on a carved stone bench. Before her lay an ancient Xeranian harp, its strings glowing faintly in the moonlight. She plucked them with delicate fingers, and each note drifted into the night like a sigh. The floating gardens below sparkled under violet lamps, and the stars above seemed to lean closer, listening. Aaron paused, not wishing to interrupt. He folded his arms and watched her silhouette against the sky. Her dark hair fell over one shoulder, and her posture spoke of both grace and deep sorrow. Realized he had never heard her speak of her life before the war, only seen the strength in her eyes. Now in this quiet moment, he sensed the weight she carried. When she finished the song, Arya gently set the harp aside and looked up at him. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Captain Vale," she said softly, voice trembling. "Thank you for listening." He stepped closer, his uniform crisp in the moonlight. "Your music," he replied. "It's beautiful, but you seem sad. May I ask why?" Arya took a steadying breath and met his gaze. "My sister Eliza played this very harp when she was alive," she began, her voice low. "She taught me these songs, told me stories of peace and joy. She believed our worlds could one day share laughter instead of battle. But she died in the attack on the southern fields." Her hand brushed one of the strings as though seeking comfort. "Each note I play carries her memory and my sorrow." Aaron felt his own chest tighten. He remembered the faces of those he had lost in battle. The hollow ache that never fully healed. He knelt beside her, placing a hand on her arm. "I am sorry for your loss," he said, sincere. "I lost friends in that attack too. War takes more than land. It takes people's hope." Arya looked at him, surprise and gratitude mingling. In her eyes, she nodded once, tears slipping free. "I feared I would never find peace again," she whispered. "This marriage, this peace treaty felt like another loss. I thought I married duty, not love." She paused, voice breaking. "Now I find you here offering understanding, not chains." Aaron rose slowly, pulling a lantern closer. Its warm light illuminated her face. "Princess, I came here as a soldier, bound by orders. I see now that I am also a person bound by compassion." He offered her his hand. "May I play a song for?" "Elisa, I know a simple human melody my mother taught me." Arya hesitated, then smiled through her tears. She handed him the harp. His fingers felt awkward on the glowing strings, but he remembered the tune. A lullaby called home. He plucked the first notes. They carried a gentle, rolling rhythm. Arya closed her eyes, listening. Each chord wove together Xeranian magic and human memory, a bridge between two worlds. When he finished, the air trembled with shared emotion. Arya leaned forward and whispered that was her favorite. She reached out and touched his hand. "Thank you for honoring her." In that touch, Aaron felt something blossom, a fragile trust. Warmed by grief and hope alike, they sat in quiet afterward, two souls sharing loss beneath a silent sky. The floating blossoms swayed in the night breeze, petals glowing like tiny stars. Aaron realized that Arya's heart held both pain and strength. She needed more than a treaty. She needed someone who cared beyond duty. As the lanterns dimmed and moonlight deepened, he stood. "Princess, I understand why you held me here tonight. You needed me to see who you are, not just what you represent." He bowed his head respectfully. "Tomorrow, I will stand by your side at the final rite, not as a prisoner, but as your friend." Arya looked up, hope lighting her eyes for the first time since their union. She rose and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Thank you, Aaron. I think I can release your heart, as you have released mine." Together they turned toward the palace doors, bound by a new promise that their peace would grow from shared music, shared grief, and shared hope. Captain Aaron Vale stood beside Princess Arya in the central courtyard, where Xeranian citizens had gathered for the Peace Garden ceremony. The air was filled with the scent of alien blooms, and soft music drifted from hidden speakers. Arya wore a simple gown of pale green, embroidered with silver vines. Aaron adjusted his uniform and felt a flutter of nerves. Today was more than ceremony, it was a chance to show his goodwill to her people. A long stone table held rows of young saplings, each glowing faintly where its roots touched the soil. Arya picked up a small plant with white petals that shimmered. "In the morning sun?" She smiled at Aaron. "This is the star leaf," she said. "It symbolizes new life between our worlds." Aaron nodded, taking the sapling from her hands. Its light pulsed gently, as though alive with hope. At a signal, the crowd fell silent. Elder Nares, draped in blue and gold robes, stepped forward and raised his arms. "Today we plant seeds of peace," he announced in a clear voice. "May these gardens remind us of unity and trust." The crowd cheered softly, voices rising and falling like a gentle wave. Aaron's chest swelled with pride. He pressed the sapling into the prepared soil, patting the earth around it. Next to him, Arya did the same. As they worked side by side, Aaron felt warmth in his heart. The simple act of planting felt sacred. He looked at the faces around him, children, elders, soldiers from both worlds. All watched him with bright eyes. When Arya glanced his way, he offered her a genuine smile. In that moment, he felt connected not just to her, but to every person present. The ceremony continued with each delegate planting a sapling. Aaron stepped back and clapped politely alongside Arya. The courtyard filled with applause. He heard whispers in both Xeranian and human tongues, praising the princess and the brave envoy from Earth. Aaron's shoulders straightened. For a fleeting second, He believed he belonged here.
Oh.
Realized something unsettled him. The cheers were stronger when they sang Aria's name. Hands reached out to her, flowers and garlands offered in tribute. Aaron watched Arya accept each gift graciously. She blushed under the attention, her smile tinged with shyness. Pang of longing for recognition for his own place beside her. After the ceremony, Arya led him through winding paths of newly planted trees. Petals brushed his uniform as they passed. At a quiet fountain, she paused and turned to him. "Thank you for joining me," she said softly. "You have shown my people that you care." Aaron looked at the glowing saplings and remembered her grief on the balcony. He had seen her sorrow and her strength. He found his voice. "It was my honor, Princess. I believe in this peace." Arya studied him, her dark eyes reflecting the water's shimmer. She reached out and squeezed his hand. "I see you not as a guest, but as my partner," she whispered. Aaron felt his heart leap. He had come here as a soldier, bound by duty. Now he realized he stood here by choice. He squeezed back, warmth spreading through him. They returned to the palace as the sun dipped lower in the sky. The courtyard emptied, leaving rows of tiny saplings glowing like stars. Aaron glanced back, imagining how tall those trees would grow. He thought of the treaty, the marriage, the uncertain days ahead, and he thought of Arya's hand in his own. In the quiet sunset, he understood that peace was more than a treaty. It was a promise, watered by trust and care. He turned to Arya and offered her a small bow of respect. "I will stand by you," he said, "not as prisoner, but as friend." Arya's smile shone brighter than any star. Together, they walked. Through the palace gates, two hearts united under the promise of a new world. Captain Aaron Vale entered the grand library, a place of silent knowledge and ancient scrolls. Tall shelves rose to the vaulted ceiling, each lined with leather-bound volumes. The late afternoon light filtered through stained glass windows, casting patterns on the marble floor. Aaron paused, breathing in the scent of old paper and polished wood. He felt both awe and restlessness. Here, he hoped to find a way home. He moved between the shelves, scanning titles in the Zeranian script. Treaties, histories, and maps filled the rows. Aaron pulled a heavy volume from a lower shelf and opened it to a map of Zorana's royal decrees. His eyes traced the fine lines and seals, searching for a clause that might free him from his vows. Every page seemed to reinforce his captivity, binding him tighter than any chain. Frustration crept into his calm. He pressed a hand to his forehead and let out a soft sigh. The dream of returning to Earth felt distant, like a memory slipping through his fingers. He flipped through treaty after treaty, but each line spoke of unity, of marriage as a symbol of peace. There was no loophole, only the promise that he, as Arya's husband, would stand by her side. A soft voice startled him. "You always look so serious in here?" Princess Arya Zirion appeared at the end of the aisle, her lavender gown brushing the floor. In her hand, she held a small worn book bound in faded green leather. Aaron set aside his treaty volumes and turned to her, curiosity, replacing frustration. "Princess," he said, "I did not hear you arrive." Arya smiled gently and ran her fingers over the book's cover. "This was my favorite when I was a child," she said. She opened it to reveal simple drawings of gardens and forests, mixed with her neat handwriting. "My mother gave it to me on my 10th birthday. She wrote about her travels to Earth. She said the human world was full of blue skies and songs of birds." Aaron knelt beside her and peered at the drawings. He saw sketches of wide fields, tall trees, and small houses with slanted roofs. Each page was filled with wonder. "It is beautiful," he said. "Yes. Earth has forests like these, and skies that stretch farther than any palace." He felt warmth in his chest, imagining green fields and the gentle sound of wind through leaves. Arya's eyes shone as she traced a drawing of a child holding a flower. "I dreamed of walking in those gardens," she whispered. "I thought I would see Earth one day and plant real trees under its sun. But the war changed everything. My mother died before we could leave Zorana." She closed the book, a tremor in her voice. Since then, I have lived in stone halls and broken promises. Aaron rose and placed a hand on her shoulder. Mother's dreams can still live, he said softly. We can plant gardens on Earth and here. We can share our worlds. He looked into her eyes and saw a flicker of hope. In that moment, he realized that his duty and his heart might align. He did not feel like a prisoner, felt like an ally. Arya offered him a gentle smile. Would you walk with me in one of those gardens someday? She asked. Aaron nodded, his heart lifting. I promise, he said. It's not as a soldier, but as your friend. They stood together in the quiet library, to people bound by loss and hope. In the fading light, they planned a future of shared dreams one step closer to true peace. The night sky over Zorana was painted in deep violet, and a soft breeze carried the scent of distant flowers through the palace corridors. Princess Arya led Captain Aaron Vale by the hand, her touch warm and steady. They walked in silence until they reached a hidden courtyard behind a carved stone arch. Their glowing blossoms draped over low walls, their soft light dancing on the smooth marble floor. The air felt alive with gentle magic. Aaron's heart beat faster with each step. Arya paused beneath a moonlit fountain, its water falling in silver threads. She turned to Aaron, her dark eyes reflecting the ripples. In the hush of the courtyard, she seemed both regal and vulnerable. Aaron, she began, voice barely above a whisper, I have shown you the best of Zorana tonight. She let go of his hand and stepped closer to the flowers. Now I must show you my truth. Aaron watched her, his uniform crisp, his calm. Mask slipping to reveal curiosity and concern, she reached out and brushed a glowing petal, as though afraid it might vanish. I married you to seal a peace treaty, she said, looking down. I thought it was duty, nothing more. But each day, I have seen your kindness, your courage. She raised her head and met his gaze. I cannot let you leave because I have fallen in love with you. Her words hovered between them, tender and brave. Aaron felt warmth spread through his chest, equal parts surprise and joy. A silence followed, heavy with meaning. Aaron took a step nearer, his boots silent on the marble. Princess, he said softly, I never expected this. He looked around. At the glowing garden, the moonlight on Arya's face, I came here as a soldier and a peace envoy. Yet I find my heart bound not by duty, but by hope. He reached out, his fingers almost touching hers. I feel the same something deeper than any treaty. Arya's lips trembled in a shy smile. She placed her hand in his, the glowing petals casting gentle light on their joined hands. Then you see me, not only as your princess, but as a woman who dreams. Her voice grew stronger. I dream of a life with you walking in human fields, laughing under your sun, and sharing my own world with you. Her eyes glistened with tears of hope. Will you stay with me, because you choose to? Aaron looked up at the violet sky, breathing in the night air scented with promise. He felt the weight of his orders, the duty to his home on earth, pull at him like a distant anchor. But here, in this magic-lit courtyard, he felt a new sense of belonging. He thought of the heart melodies, the peace garden, the stories in the library. Each moment had led him to care for Arya beyond any mission. She waited, her hands still in his, her heart open like the glowing flowers around them. The moonlight painted her hair in silver, and Aaron felt his resolve shift. He realized that love could be stronger than any treaty, more binding than any oath. His eyes met hers, steady and clear. Arya, he said, voice full of feeling, I choose you. The words felt both simple and profound. Arya closed her eyes and leaned forward, her forehead resting against his. In the quiet of the hidden courtyard, their hearts beat as one. The glowing blossoms pulsed softly, echoing their joy, although the night held many questions. In that moment, there was only the promise of tomorrow, promise born of love, hope, and the courage to choose. A shared path under alien stars? At dawn, the palace gates opened to reveal the human delegation waiting on the marble steps. Captain Aaron Vale stood beside Princess Arya Zirian, the soft violet light of early morning haloing them both. He felt the cool breeze of Zorana stir his uniform, carrying the mingled scents of alien flowers and distant earth rain. The knights of both worlds lined the courtyard in respectful silence, waiting for this decisive moment. Aaron stepped forward and addressed the assembly in clear, calm tones. "My friends," he began, glancing first at the humans, then at the Zoranian elders and citizens gathered behind them. "I came here as a soldier to fulfill my duty and return home." He paused, memory of the floating palace halls and shared music filling his mind. "But in these days, I have found a new purpose." Heads turned toward Arya, who watched him with hope shining in her eyes. Aaron looked at the princess, her dark hair luminous in the dawn, her lavender gown, a soft promise of unity. He spoke with steady conviction. "I choose to remain by her side, not because I am bound by treaty, but because my heart is bound to hers." A gentle murmur rose from the crowd. The human envoy exchanged surprised glances. While the Zoranian elders exchanged knowing smiles, Arya's face lit up with a radiant joy. She stepped forward and took Aaron's hand. "We stand together," she said softly, "not as captor and captive, but as partners equals, sharing one destiny." Her voice carried across the courtyard, echoing like a song. The knights on both sides lowered their heads in respect, and the citizens held their breath. Feeling the weight of history shift, Elder Nares raised his staff and spoke in a firm yet gentle voice. "Let this union be the true symbol of peace between our worlds." He